George Soros is at Davos, and he is giving huge warnings to the rest of the financial community and to the political leaders. Not that anybody will listen to him, but saying, hey, we're in much worse shape than you realize, and the European Union is in terrible shape, and the euro will likely break up. Now, here are some of his quotes. European leaders had little understanding of how financial markets really work and did everything wrong. Okay, that's not encouraging. Now, look, a lot of conservatives in this country are against Soros because he gives some liberal groups. He fought communism. What a lib. Anyway, and then he gives some causes now that are progressive, et cetera. But the reality is George Soros is a financial speculator, right? And we have pretty good evidence that he knows how the financial markets work because he's made billions off of them. Pretty decent evidence. Whenever it's someone else who's a right-winger and has made billions off the markets, the Republicans will say, oh, look at this financial genius. We should listen to whatever he says. When it's Soros, they're like, oh, don't listen to him. Don't listen to him. He doesn't know anything about finance. Really? Okay. George Soros continues. Without a clear game plan, Europe will remain mired in a larger, vicious circle in which economic decline and political deterioration continue to reinforce one another. Oh boy, that's not really heartwarming. He's originally from Hungary. Hungary right now, he thinks, is one of those situations where they're getting a more and more militaristic, authoritarian, right-wing government, that as the people are legitimately mad about what their government has done, the government clamps down on them more. It's a vicious cycle, and the economy doesn't get any better from it. It only gets worse. So it's a dark future we have ahead if it goes in that direction. Soros also said, the best case scenario is a deflationary environment. The worst case scenario is a collapse of the financial system. And he thinks that worst case scenario is not unlikely, meaning that there's a decent chance that we hit that iceberg and we hit it hard. Best case scenario is all your savings that you saved up, sad day for you. We're going to have deflation. Not only are you not going to be able to live off of it, but they're going to be continually losing value. By the way, one of the reasons we have that, why? Because the banks need those loans from the Fed and from the European Central Bank at nearly 0% interest rate. They got to have the money. They're hooked on it. And so are the governments. They're like, oh, give it to me at almost 0%, because if I pay more, then I won't be able to pay my debt. So that creates deflationary cycle. But who suffers? The people who did the things the most. The guys who saved, the guys who were responsible, the guys who were conservative and said, hey, you know what? I'm going to save up my money and I'm going to live off of that when I retire. Well, too bad. Now you're not making any interest off of it because the governments are hooked on debt and the banks love their avarice in getting that free money. So you're screwed. And that's the best case scenario. The worst case scenario is none of it works. The banks collapse, the financial system collapses, and we're into a Great Depression like we've never seen before. Now, I got one more quote for you from George Soros. So, you think that's bad? One last quote from Soros. It will be an excuse for cracking down. The governments will use this collapse and using strong-arm tactics to maintain law and order, which carried to an extreme could bring about a repressive political system. So the news doesn't really get too good from there on. He is putting out major warning signs. I totally agree with him. And by the way, just spare me. Oh, you guys are funded by Soros. We never got a dime from Soros. I'm not opposed to it, but he never called, right? We just happen to agree with him. Not like Newt Gingrich and Sheldon Adelson happen to agree. No, I think he's right on this. I see the same things that he sees. I see the deflation, which, by the way, I know economics is complicated, but then could at some point, if things go really south, could spring to huge inflation. So then you get screwed on both sides. Let's hope that Soros is wrong. Let's hope that I'm wrong. But we see disaster on the horizon. I don't know how far out it is. You know, I'll tell you something interesting. One of the things that makes me worry is that Geithner is leaving. Now, you guys say, what? You just told me yesterday how excited you were about it. Yeah, of course. He can't leave a day too early, right? Get out, get, right? But one of the reasons I'm worried is if the banks see that their man in Washington, that's their quote about Tim Geithner, their man in Washington is leaving, they might think, I got to get that last bailout before he leaves. because we don't know who's going to replace him. In which case they might, I think they're inevitably going to collapse. So the only question is when, and they might think, well, better before Geithner leaves, which would mean that it was quicker. Oh boy.